Hello, and good morning to all. Thank you very much for being with us. My name is Walter Zampieri. I'm the head of unit for culture in the European Executive Agency for Education and Culture. So thank you very much for joining us for this event on the cultural cooperation in the Western Balkans. Today, there will be lots of information, there will be great projects, there will be very interesting speakers. But before the actual introduction, I also have to give you a few instructions, a few housekeeping rules about how we'll play the game today. I'm sure it's not the first time that you participate in an online event, so you will not be shocked if I told you that you should keep your microphones closed, please, because it is there are always connection problems that are possible around this event. You should also, please do not turn on your camera. And you will not be using the chat for the purposes of posing questions directly to the speakers. In fact, we have already collected the questions, and they will be addressed by the main speakers during the day, during the morning. You will also be a Q&A session at the end of this morning, so it should be everything should be addressed properly. And of course, if you have specific and additional questions on our projects, our calls, what we'll be doing with the program, there will be specific questions that you can address to the general mailbox that we have for the call, and it will come up on the screen again at the end of today. I will also have to remind you that we will start sharp at 9:30, so in a couple of minutes we will start again, and that will be the actual introduction that will be presented by Alessandra Lucchetti. As you can see on the screen, she's the head of department of the Executive Agency for Creativity, Citizenship and Joint Operations. So thank you very much, and please stay tuned, just wait for a couple more minutes and we will start again with the proper introduction. Thank you very much. We have already 149 people and counting. I think there are even more people that have registered for this event, so they will come with us during the day. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this event and meet the brand new project supporting cultural cooperation within the EU and the Western Balkans regions, funded under the Culture Strength of the Creative Europe program. In my capacity of Head of Department for Creativity, Citizenships and Joint Operations at the Education and Culture Executive Agency, it is an honor for me to be here today and to greet you also on behalf of our director, Mr. Carlini, who unfortunately could not be here with us today. It is also an honor for us to introduce a message from Commissioner Oliver Varhelyi and to have later with us Commissioner Maria Gabriel, with whom you will have the possibility to exchange more after her intervention today. During the day, Olga Schröder, Head of Unit, the Director General for Neighborhood and Enlargement Negotiations, and Barbara Gessler, Head of Unit, the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, will also provide you with more information and interesting information. Let me also thank the Cultural Relations Platform for organizing this event, which, as you know very well, aims to present the results of the Call for Proposal Culture Cooperation Project in the Western Balkans, which was launched in December 2019. And we are really very pleased about the positive echo that our invitation to this event has found, as as you will know later, all the 13 funded projects have accepted our invitation and are represented here with all the participants. As you know, the call was financed by the Instrument of Pre-Accession Assistance and had a budget of 5 million euros and was part of a package of measures to increase cooperation between entities based in both the EU and the Western Balkans. And of course, we would like also to thank the Commission services for having entrusted the agency with the management of these strategic important actions. You also know already that the number of proposals received following the publication of this call was rather high, nearly 350 proposals. And this exceeded somehow the expectation and confirmed the interest in the call, and at the same time highlighted the unprecedented, let's say, cooperation from all the stakeholders, willing indeed to put together highly relevant cooperation proposal. I would also like to warmly congratulate you for having succeeded in the application process. We all know that the preparation of a proposal requires a huge effort and that only the very best proposal can make it. The competition in this call was very high. We received many good proposals, and there are no doubts that the selected projects are of very high quality. And of course, we are now counting on you to turn this retained proposal into excellent project, and we will work together in order to do that and to better exploit the potential of the project that we will manage together, and to provide also the European Commission with relevant inputs possibly used for policy making. The funded project, the 13 funded project, includes 86 organizations with a balanced repartition between organizations based in the EU or in the 6 Western Balkan partners, and with 60% of the beneficiary organizations based in the Western Balkans. In addition to that, to the diversification of partners, the project comprises a diversified and balanced portfolio of sectors, which include translation and publishing, architecture, video, arts, painting and drawing, theater, contemporary dance, graphic and visual art, music, intangible culture, museums, or historical sites. And the selection will also contribute to cross-cutting objectives of the Commission as specified in the call, such as gender equality and diversity, women empowerment, youth, children, body diversity, and environment or migration. Let me also mention and stress how the consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic has reinforced our understanding on how important culture is in our everyday lives. It has been an extremely hard time for the culture sector, with venues that needed to partially reduce their activity or even temporarily close due to the effects of the crisis. And I can only highlight the importance of the work that you are carrying out throughout your projects. So I think that it is now time to give the floor to you, and we will start by watching a short video that summarizes what the 13 selected projects deal with. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, it's only a 2-minute video, but you can really see how vibrant, no, how dynamic is the region, how lively is the cultural life in this region itself. The materials of these projects, of this video, come directly from the beneficiaries, from the organizers of the projects. But it's only a teaser. This is just a teaser. Huh? How we will present you now is with each and every project with a very short video, a 2-minute video, where there are specific messages that each project will give you. So now it's coming up, the real thing for 6 more projects.
Hello, I'm Victor.
And I'm Sara. We are from Cultural Festival from Montenegro.
We are coordinators of the EU project Synergy, together with some of the most relevant classical music festivals from the Western Balkan region,
such as Dubrovnik Summer Festival, Ljubljana Festival, Belgrade Festival Center, Vox Barak from Albania, and Kosovo Chopin Association. Through exchange of experiences, by supporting young cultural managers and researchers, by commissioning new works, and by providing platform to promote composers and emerging musicians, we will sharpen the skills and increase capacities of classical music sector in this part of Europe.
Our first set of activities, Classical Music Behind the Stage, consists of workshops with comprehensive analysis of classical music production, which will result in a classical music production guidebook distributed throughout the region and Europe.
Classical music, how it's made, is a set of activities with residencies for composers in all project countries, during which 12 new works inspired by local and European cultural heritage will be developed.
Finally, through actions called Classical Music on the Stage, these new works will be promoted and performed throughout the Western Balkan region by numerous emerging musicians.
So follow #Synergy and stay tuned.
It is through play that we are going to build up local and regional trust among the partners and among communities. As famous pedagogue Paulo Freire taught us that there is no change without dream, as there is no dream without hope, we believe that our hope of today, of creating more playful environments, will contribute to the structure of societal changes in the Western Balkans of tomorrow.
Replay Partners will pioneer a co-creative design process involving children as primary collaborators, with the aim of transforming the status quo of play design in the Western Balkan and creating more inclusive and exciting infrastructures of play in our cities.
According to Ken Robinson, play is especially important for physical, social, emotional, and intellectual development of children, and therefore we find access to safe, supportive, imaginative playscape in the core of today's healthy everydayness and society in our more and more urbanized environments, not fit or made for public playscape.
Play, co-creation, playscape.
With Replay project, we want to recreate, rediscover, reposition, remember, re-acknowledge, and re-access natural, free, and unstructured play in public spaces by redesigning playscapes together with children of Western Balkan.
What is the Balkan Translations Collider project about?
It is about cross-border and cross-language cultural communication via literary translation.
About developing evidence-based public policies together with cultural organizations on the ground.
About alternative techniques and approaches in presenting and promoting literature abroad.
About peer learning and investing in the new generation of literary managers.
Better collaboration between literary organizations from Western Balkans and the rest of Europe.
About expanding the channels by which Western Balkans literature reach wider European readership.
Are you actually planning to support translators and publishers, perhaps by giving grants?
No, the project is not about publishing grants.
The ecosystem of European literary exchange involves an array of non-commercial literary and cultural organizations.
Like festivals, book fairs, agents, residencies, reading promotion initiatives, and many more.
Their work play a major role in what we as Europeans read today and the literature we have to access to.
The Collider project invests in these intermediaries, the go-betweens, the literary managers and producers,
as potentially playing a consequential role in the successful passage of a literary work into a new other language readership. What is the Collider project looking to achieve in the long run?
A dialogue between the independent sector, cultural industries, and the public sector in the partner countries.
Better informed cultural public policies based on wide consultations, data, and analysis.
More diversity and space for literature of the Western Balkans and literary events and bookshop fronts across Europe.
New collaborations across the invisible border between the Western Balkans and colleagues from EU members.
More effective and wise use of digital alternatives to traditional book promotions.
Form stable alliances and continue working together beyond the project's end.
Because translation is the only way for different worlds to find a home in different languages.
Some of us Balkans is reimagining the Balkans, cooperating horizontally and hybrid, building common ground reality. Some of us Balkans will build a transnational community of artists, cultural operators, and publics across the Western Balkans and the EU. Some of us Balkans will co-create new narratives about the region and overcome misleading stereotypes through cultural and artistic practices. Some of us Balkans is promoting collective production of knowledge through mutual learning. Some of us Balkans will have as a first result to uncover multiple representations and narrative of the region. Local and regional authorities will be aware of the crucial contemporary topics and the need to ensure more resources to the creative industry as vectors of social inclusion and cooperation. Sustainable digital ecosystem that allows further contribution and networking possibilities. A large consortium of partners coming from Italy, Germany, Bosnia, Serbia, Albania, Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Greece will implement a multiplicity of actions such as an artistic research action investigating myths and misconceptions in the contemporary Western Balkans, a one-month capacity residency, a one-month artistic residency, and a co-created grand tour journey of 8 artists in the Western Balkans, starting from Serbia toward Bosnia, North Macedonia, Kosovo, Albania, and Greece, and a final exhibition in Western Balkans and final exhibition of 2 weeks in Pristina.
I don't know. Fire! Passion. Love. Hate.
There is so much left to be unearthed.
Hello, I'm Hedwig Feijen, Director of Manifesto. And in this short introduction, I would like to go more in detail into why Manifesto selected the city of Pristina in Kosovo, and why we are aiming for this regional and trans-regional collaboration through the Manifesto 14 Western Balkan project. And maybe to tell you a little bit more about the key elements in our programming. What do we want to reach? What do we want to leave? Maybe first it's very important to underline Manifesto is not anymore a purely contemporary art biennial. Since Manifesto 11 in Zurich or Manifesto 12 in Palermo, Manifesto has focused far more on a transdisciplinary approach, on working in cross-media sectors. You can imagine working in architecture, urbanism, performance art, theater, literature. Almost everything, every different practice is possible to interact within a Manifesto programming. And of course, the Manifesto Western Balkan project animates the development of this new interdisciplinary institution that researchers stimulates, builds a capacity, but also becomes a radical local and regional approach from a post-COVID perspective. So not only during the Manifesto Biennial, but really leaving a legacy. And the partners in the network promote, of course, this envisioned new institution and will address the politics of care, the politics of solidarity between the different communities in the Western Balkans. And this form of new regionalism, a form of, let's say, coexistence and an increased access to education are the key challenges we're looking forward, especially since we are still in the COVID period. In addition, the project aims to seek to stimulate this kind of broader, sustainable network, I would rather say, a structure which can link the Western Balkan with the rest of the world's global cultural and ecological institutions, where knowledge production and local expertise can thrive. We're very much looking forward to welcome you in the Western Balkan and in Kosovo in 2022. Thank you.
Non-aligned movement is the project developed in the frame of the Balkan dance network called Nomad Dance Academy. The network Nomad Dance Academy was founded in 2005 by dance artists, producers, and theorists from the former Yugoslavia and from Bulgaria. After the turbulent political period following the breakup of the Yugoslav Federation, the various dance actors endeavored to create a dynamic and fluid artistic, cultural, and educational space in this part of Europe to improve the creative and production conditions of dance and choreography, to create new production models, and to overcome the obstacles in regard to local and national, often nationalistic, cultural policies. Since the beginning, Nomad Dance Academy has been active in the field of dance education, artistic creation, production, as well as dance promotion and advocacy for dance. Through its cultural activism, it seeks to strengthen the various creative and artistic forces in the local contemporary dance contexts of the Balkan region in order to achieve the right conditions for professionals, high caliber and exciting contemporary dance work. The Nomad Dance Academy members understand contemporary choreography as an artistic and social function, methodology, and practice, which cares for good working conditions for artists. It reflects and makes visible various presences, absences, and representations of human body, individual or collective, as well as its traces, indications, and potentialities in the past, present, and future. Non-aligned Movements is the project that is designed to boost the creative and collaborative potential of contemporary dance in the Western Balkans. It reinforces the social impact of Balkan contemporary dance by raising its capacities for action and collaboration, by promoting its heritage, and by inscribing it in future discourses and cultural practices.
Indeed, no, such a wide variety of projects covering so many different genres. And I think we can underline already the ambition of these projects. So that's why we're really excited what is happening now, no? Because they want really to build up an ecosystem, reaching out to communities. They're developing new narratives, basically, no? For the region and also for in the wider context. They want to fight the stereotypes. Think of the ecological context that we just mentioned, or this idea of overcoming boundaries within the region and also with the rest of Europe. So extremely, extremely interesting, I believe, and we are very happy about that. What do you think, Alessandra?
Yes, indeed. Indeed, they are very, very, very interesting project. We have seen the first batch, and we know now more about the areas covered. We know about, the objectives, how, our beneficiaries intend to reach these objectives, and how those projects are important for the cooperation between the organizations. I would also add that the enthusiasm and the commitment of the participants was indeed very, very good and came out from the video. So I'm really sure that those projects will be successful in reaching their objective. And again, I also think that they will indeed contribute to the cultural dialogue and to the promotion and dissemination of the art and culture in the EU and in the Western Balkans. Now, before we move to the second video with the second batch of projects, it is a pleasure for me to introduce the video message by Commissioner Oliver Varelli, responsible for neighborhood and enlargement, that unfortunately cannot be with us today, but nevertheless wanted to say a few words to all of us. Commissioner Oliver, video now.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to address today's event, which marks the launch of 13 new exciting cultural cooperation projects, bringing together organizations from the Western Balkans and member states. Let me start by congratulating Commissioner Gabriel and her colleagues for their efforts in having taken forward this pilot initiative under the EU's Creative Europe program. Cultural diversity defines Europe. Cultural cooperation, which brings together organizations and individuals of different backgrounds with shared objectives, is important for building and supporting mutual understanding and unity. These projects are a clear demonstration of our shared ambition to bring the Western Balkans into the EU and to support strong partnerships within the region. I am impressed by the very high interest this dedicated call for proposals under the EU Creative Europe program received in the region. I'm also impressed by the high quality and broad spectrum of culture cooperation projects that you are now taking forward. These projects demonstrate your ambition for cooperation between the Western Balkans and the EU, and as such, they have a strong potential to increase our links and friendships across borders. The COVID-19 crisis has affected all our lives, but the cultural and creative industries have been particularly hit. The effects of closed cultural spaces, drastically reduced mobility and tourism blockades have impacted heavily on your sectors, which are important drivers for innovation and the economy. In that respect, the importance of this pilot action is ever more relevant and timely. One thing remains constant in these unprecedented times. The Western Balkans are a top priority for the EU. The region is part of Europe, and its future is the European Union. We believe that the challenges we face can be best overcome together through increased engagement and cooperation. The Commission has demonstrated this in the past year. In April last year, the EU mobilized very swiftly a package of over 3.3 billion euros to benefit of the Western Balkans, including immediate support for the healthcare sector and significant support for the social and economic recovery needs of our partners. We are also sharing our vaccines with them. We have started to deliver more than 650,000 doses. We care and we are fighting the coronavirus and its effects together. In October last year, we adopted the European Investment Plan for the Western Balkans, which is our blueprint for action and progress in the region over the next few years. The European Commission intends to provide up to 9 billion euros of funding for the implementation of the plan, to be complemented by a new Western Balkans Guarantee Facility, which could raise investments of up to 20 billion euros. This support will promote sustainable economic growth, the implementation of reforms required to move forward on the EU path, and bringing the Western Balkans closer to the EU single market. The Economic and Investment Plan is significant for your sector in many ways. It recognizes that culture has a key role to play in terms of enabling innovation. An investment in culture is also an investment in competitiveness. The contribution of your sector to sustainable tourism is seen as key in view of raising its profile and, as such, boosting economic development. And finally, the plan offers support to strengthen the competitiveness of SMEs across sectors, including in creative industries, via access to finances and capacity building. Looking ahead, the Economic and Investment Plan will soon be complemented by an innovation agenda for the Western Balkans, which will, in more detail, outline our future approach to culture cooperation with the region in view of supporting its human capital base. I'm also glad to announce that we're shortly going to start implementing a new program dedicated to promoting intercultural dialogue and enhancing the socio-economic impact of the cultural and creative sector in the region. This program has been designed to specially target your sector's technical and financial needs, and we are very excited to see it taking shape in support of the region's abundant cultural and creative talent and potential. Let me conclude by wishing you all the success in your upcoming project activities. with productive results and continued fruitful partnerships. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner. We are very grateful to have received these very clear words from Commissioner Varhelyi, because, as I said, there are clear messages, and also for his strong support for cultural cooperation as well. But it was important to put everything in the wide context, where this call on cultural cooperation taken by the Commission and the European Union to support the Western Balkans. These are difficult times, of course. Let's remember that we proposed this call right at the moment of the pandemic, unfortunately, and it was an extraordinary, really an extraordinary response that we received from the region with more than 300 applicants. The purpose of the call was to support cooperation within the region, but also between the region, organization in the region, and the rest of Europe, the rest of the European Union. And I think we are quite successful on that. We are quite successful also because we are very ambitious. We are very ambitious about what the role of culture can provide here and in the European Union as a whole. Most of us actually are still in a lockdown, but it's really important that culture can provide the glue, no? In order that societies will not break down. This is the important role that culture can make. No? From the lockdown, we will move to a new reopening as soon as possible. We really hope that with these organizations, we can bring a little light also at the end of the tunnel, and we can really contribute to the development of the region and also for the rest of the European Union, of course. I believe that we have now a next batch of projects coming up, no? 7 more projects. Yes, here they are. Thank you.
There is a necessity for new models of organizing, governing, and working within the cultural field outside of traditional institutions or traditional institutional frameworks within culture. The Spaces innovation is based on what is now already become a very successful model implemented in the Western Balkans region of social cultural centers, collaboration or capacitating organizations to further advocate and fight for stable mechanisms of work. And these are networks of independent organizations, collaboration, and the ways or modes in which we will design these collaborations and cooperations within the Western Balkans region, but also outside or towards other actors on a more pan-European scale. And as a key mechanism to reconfigure and transform cultural systems or cultural ecosystems, especially in terms of understanding them as a public domain, so as a wide participatory public domain in which all actors included, be it organizations, be it cultural workers, be it artists or beneficiaries, have a key role in designing and making decisions about how this domain will work, creating a stable mechanism or a stable structure for collaboration within the Western Balkan region for all participants. One of the efforts is to introduce and enhance the cooperation or the participation of cultural production from the Western Balkans within wider European networks of cultural organizations.
drawing inspiration from Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, the Ways of the Heroes project feels the urgency to raise awareness of the environmental crisis we are faced with. We wish to inspire individuals to take action and build eco-conscious communities through art. By highlighting individual good practice examples through an interdisciplinary approach and the creation of an artistic ecosystem consisted of poetic videos, theater performance, illustrated children's book, exhibitions, workshops, and trainings, we will also analyze how we as artists affect the environment in our work process through several reports. We will gain new insights on the principles of creative collaboration through the building of an artistic community.
CAN for the Balkans. It's all about the unconventional approach to the history of the Balkans. It's also about historical comics. We are here. The interpretation of history, art, propaganda, our message is, if together we research, debate, and understand the history of Europe without political restrictions, culture and social cliches and stereotypes, our chances of judging correctly the past and the present are very high. CAN for Balkans does this through the research project on the story of historical comics in the Balkans and the debates organized for the artistic environment in the Western Balkans. So CAN means Comics Alliance Networking, Creative Agreement Neighborhood, Competition Advance Narrative. Finally, we can say that we have laid in the Balkans the foundations for the first European historical comics networking. And very, very importantly, our work will be enjoyed by the general public online to our project's platform and directly through the itinerary of our project's exhibition. So, European Union, CAN for the Balkans? In my opinion, yes, we can.
Translation in Motion is an international initiative launched in February 2021 by a cluster of translation centers from 8 European countries, the European Network RISI, and associated partners in the UK. The focal points of the project include literary translators as artists, cultural mediators, and ambassadors of diversity, translation residencies as centers for literary hospitality, professional development for emerging translators, inclusion and participation of Balkan translation centers in a pan-European network. One translator summed up for us why residencies are vital for his work.
За един преводач се нуждаят някои неща. Той се нуждае от една лога, тъй като той е трогнатит все пак. Бащерен човек. Трябва там да работи. Учебник, нещо. Но, същевременно, има един идеал тая биолога да се намира там, като с 3 стъпки да излезеш и да намериш езика, която питува и бушува пред теб.
The translation residencies are just these types of pathways that are, however, in the midst of the living language. They offer translators time for focused creative work on a literary translation project, the opportunity to immerse themselves in the source language of their translation to carry out research, but also to exchange with colleagues from around the world, to network with the local literary sector at the housing country, to discover new authors, to participate in debates, and to present their work to the local audiences. In addition, the Translation in Motion project will offer a pioneering program for professional development to emerging translators. The translation workshops will provide practical hands-on training on the art of literary translation and tackle career-related practical issues. The project will connect the new translation centers from the Western Balkans with such-like organizations across Europe and give them equal footing in the future joint activities of the European Network RSI.
Welcome to the gladiator battles by the bravest performers. Let's get ready to rumble!
The project will provide a new cooperation model for using digital technologies to enhance cultural experience at 3 archaeological sites: Stobi in North Macedonia, Dominacium in Serbia, and Emona in Slovenia. This model will lead to untold and uncovered historical and cultural stories with fresh content, easy to share and even easier to spread with wider public. This project will extend the cooperation between the creative, cultural, civic and academia sector. It will provide a base for development of the capacities of the cultural institutions to explore the opportunities for immersive storytelling in creating narratives and experiences that will attract new audiences and disseminate the values of cultural heritage. The project will offer new opportunities for perceiving cultural heritage through designing novel touristic attractions and user-centric experiences attractive to new audiences.
Hello from Belgrade. Imagine what energy of one woman can have inside herself and what can be done in the synergy of more women in one place. Rise of a woman in culture in Western Balkans offer a part of answer to that question. The modern age is an age of imperative to which art responds with diversity and in expression and in media. Understanding and acceptance is key. Art connects, and this will be presented through 2 exhibitions, Woman About Woman, both in real space and virtual space. Through the liaison work of female curators and female artists, we raise awareness of the female angle of observation and reaction to reality. During the process of project, we will talk, explore, educate, collaborate, socialize, and adapting to modern digital technologies. Aware of the need for youthful energy and desire to encourage them, we have developed the residential program with 30 young female artists from Western Balkans and Europe. By networking curators from both non-institutional sector and institutional sector, we open field for connecting and encouraging future projects with similar theme. What we will do for wider visibility. That is interactive website, filming and broadcasting, the documentary series, as well as the final publication. We are greatly supported by the partner leader of Phenomena Association, who gave this project its feminist perspective. So the project is based of 95% participation of women in culture, they gathering and merging with the aim of raising awareness about the role of women in culture in Western Balkan. And for that, we choose the term love as identity, which is implying all these aspects.
The ReCulture project responds to the need for cultural institutions to address and attract more inclusive audiences with a special focus on young people. We expect the project to successfully rebrand 4 selected institutions in the Western Balkans and to showcase the results with a traveling exhibition and comprehensive publication. Our hope is to develop the local design scene and its links to the wider ecosystem of associated partners across Europe. An open call will lead to the selection of 8 talented young designers from the Western Balkans who will investigate, retool, and update the selected institutions under the guidance of local and additional European mentors from the fields of visual arts, scenography, and graphic design. The project will extend its reach beyond the main beneficiaries by involving additional institutions and designers from the region in a wealth of activities and shared experiences. Together we strive to galvanize the wider public in the spirit of design-driven experimentation and collective learning.
Hello again. Indeed, we can see again the same ambition with this 7 batch, with these 7 projects. No, you can see the ambition to tackle the environment, to take all the advantages of the digital shift for bringing cultural heritage to new audiences, to young audiences as well. Comics as an opportunity, of course. We have residencies for translations, and we have, of course, the possibility for giving more possibility to female artists, to young female artists. I think what is very clear from these projects, it is that this region is a hotbed of social innovation. And this time, I would like to underline the large partnerships, no? The effort for capacity building, for audience development, reaching out again to communities and to wide communities of the cultural context here and in the wider Europe, of course, in the EU as well. What do you think, Alessandra? Do you like them?
I like them very much. And again, I would like to underline the enthusiasm, the commitment, the dedication of all the beneficiaries. So this is something that is coming out for the project, is a good and excellent recipe for the real success of all these projects. So it is indeed very useful, very inspiring to listen to them and to see how the project will indeed carried out all these objectives. And again, I repeat, I'm sure it will be a success. Now, the project also shows the richness of the activities, as you mentioned, that are proposed in the frame of the strong cooperation between the different countries, at which indeed a focus on vital elements in the current culture sector, such as women empowerment, sustainable growth, and social cohesion. The strong cooperation with the Western Balkans and the real potential of added values to citizens and societies is the core of the work in all areas of the portfolio of Commissioner Maria Gabriel, European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, that we are honored to have today here with us, and to whom I'm very, very pleased to give the floor. So, Commissioner Gabriel, the floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Alessandra. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for the online launch of Western Balkans Cultural Cooperation Projects. Allow me to start by saying thank you to my colleague, Commissioner Verhelyi, and his team in DG NEAR, because we are working extremely well with them, and it's so positive news to see that we can support extraordinary projects. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the colleagues in the services, NEAR, EAC, and the executive agency for implementing the call, but in particular for succeeding in the difficult task of selecting only 13 projects from nearly 350 high-quality applications. And I'm really pleased to be here to congratulate the project coordinators and all those working in the projects, and to underline how important cultural cooperation is between the EU and the Western Balkans, and also within the region. We all know that culture has the power to unite, to create empathy, to share our experience, our values, heritage, and sense of belonging. And personally, I'm very committed to assisting the integration of the Western Balkans in all areas under my portfolio and my responsibility. Culture is also dear to my heart, especially now we all have seen how negative is the impact of COVID-19 on cultural and creative sectors. And I'm really very happy to be here together with you, with all these 90 cultural organizations from Western Balkans and the EU. Well, a lot about this special call for cultural cooperation with the Western Balkans was already being outlined. Your 13 projects not only address the challenges of the region, they go beyond them. They tackle cross-cutting issues such as gender equality, youth, children, women's empowerment, environment, migration. And I'm particularly pleased that nearly half the projects will be coordinated by an organization in the region, and that nearly 3 million euro of the 5 million budget will be going to the Western Balkans partners. But more importantly, as we heard, these projects are first collaborative, bringing diverse cultures together to cooperate and learn, creative, taking groundbreaking approaches, sustainable, creating lasting change, conscious of the environment around us, and interdisciplinary, using multiple cultural forms including cultural heritage, dance, theater, graphic arts and literature, architecture, and many more. And the tremendously high number of applications indicate the relevance of this call for the region. And even if not selected, the 760 cultural organizations which took part in the nearly 350 applications have started collaborations, which I hope will continue and spill over into other activities, including participation in the new Creative Europe program. Well, the new Creative Europe program, it's really now we are in the last phase. Yesterday, I participated in the plenary debate in the European Parliament that will be adopted today by them. And for me, the first message is really to encourage you to seize the opportunities offered by our Creative Europe program, because my services are already working on associating the Western Balkans to the new program to ensure a continuation for their cultural stakeholders from one program generation to another one. And the new Creative Europe program is aligned with the new European agenda for culture. It evolves from and builds on the previous program, but and at the same time, the main two objectives remain unchanged: promoting European cultural and linguistic diversity and cultural heritage, and reinforcing the competitiveness of our cultural and creative sectors. The program will continue with the same structure, that is with 3 strands: culture, media, and cross-sectoral, with a significantly increased budget, 63% in comparison with the previous program. We really believe that the new program will offer more funding opportunities for many actions. For example, the successful mobility scheme for individual artists and cultural professionals, e-Portunus, will be reinforced with a much higher budget. And this particular scheme is very important as we are slowly coming out of lockdown. I read with interest the stories of how a grant of about €3,000 has helped the careers, especially of emerging artists. And more support will also be provided to specific cultural sectors, more capacity building actions, and networking possibilities. Finally, the European co-financing amount for cooperation projects will be significantly increased, allowing for greater outreach to diverse cultural organizations of all sizes. I invite you and your peers to take part in the first calls for proposals to be announced soon. But besides the Creative Europe program, I would like to share with you how we already worked more than a year on to extending the cooperation on culture between the European Union and the Western Balkans on a political level. That will be done via my proposal to have a Western Balkans agenda on innovation, research, education, culture, youth, and sport. This agenda has been developed over the last year with my team, and after several consultations with key stakeholders from the region, including the ministers of culture, I have received support from our member states. And it's an important date for all of us, 27th of May, next week. We'll sign a joint declaration in order really to give more visibility to all the different actions that we would like to promote with the region. So we are now eager to move ahead.
Yes, I'm afraid we are having what we mentioned this morning was a possibility. We have some connection problems. I hope the Commissioner will be able to come back to us, but it doesn't seem to be happening. Let's just give us a few minutes, though, to see if the connection is back. Unfortunately, we know that the Commissioner has other commitments, and she cannot stay for the rest of the morning with us, actually. But I think it was very important to receive, you see, live, so to speak, these messages from the Commissioner. I mean, the commitment to culture, the commitment to the Western Balkans, the new Creative Europe, which is really, really coming up. As the Commissioner mentioned, Yesterday there was the plenary session, there will be now the vote. So finally, the Creative Europe program will really start in a couple of weeks. We will be able to launch all the calls and what the Commissioner has mentioned, all the possibilities that there are to create new partnerships, to develop new ones. They are absolutely now coming into reality in a couple of weeks. I don't know if Alessandra has to comment on the words of the Commissioner, which were very, very encouraging, I believe, for all of us, all the project promoters, all those who care about the future of Europe and the Western Balkans.
Indeed, Walter. I mean, having the support of Commissioner Gabriel and also, of course, it is really important for all of us and, of course, for our stakeholders. And we can indeed build on that. And again, it is something that is crucial for everybody. So having her here now, it is a pity that now the connection has been lost, but let's hope it will be restored, because indeed, as I promised, as I mentioned, not I promised at the beginning, you would have indeed the possibility, I mean, to ask some question to the Commissioner, despite, I mean, her busy time and the fact that she will have to leave so soon, and she could not stay for the entire, till the end of the event. But maybe in the meantime, we can propose something while we are waiting for the connection with the Commissioner to be restored. We can propose something for you, a teaser, right?
Yes. Let's send again the teaser. Unfortunately, I'm afraid the Commissioner is not back with us again. In any case, as I said at the beginning, there will also be a Q&A session at the end. So we will be able still to address all the questions that we are collected since yesterday. So we will cover absolutely all the grounds. It's a pity, but as we said, I mean, connections are always a bit problematic these days. So I believe we could actually have probably, yes, we could move to the coffee break. So we can wait for a few minutes, but I'm afraid, no, the Commissioner is not back with us. So I propose that we have a break. Maybe we can start at 5 to 11. What do you say? Let's move to the, let's have a coffee break. Let's grab a cup of coffee, and then we will be back. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning again, and thank you very much for the 157 people who are still with us through the what is important is I believe that the Commissioner still managed to say all the essential things. And in any case, the speech will be published. So we will publish this speech in the event website. So you will be able to follow directly and read what the Commissioner has said. Now we have another, I believe, interesting session, because we will be with two head of units, with Holger Schröder and Barbara Gessler. Here we can see also, of course, what we are about to do. Holger is the head of unit in DG NEAR for regional cooperation and programs for the Western Balkans. And Barbara Gessler is the head of unit in DG EEC, so for education, youth, sport and culture. And in particular, she manages the Creative Europe program. As we said, these are in big days, no? Because the program is about really to be formally adopted, and then it will be launched. We will have short interventions, short speeches from both Holger and Barbara. Then there will be also another very, very short but interesting videos. And then we will move to the question and answers, where we will cover everything that the commissioners have in part already said. We will also explain a little better, and we will take on all the questions that we have collected. And we had also proposed for the commissioner, but unfortunately, it didn't work like that. Anyway, please bear with us. I suppose that now we are ready also for Holger. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Walter. So dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, many thanks for inviting me to take part in this event. And I should first join, I think, the previous speakers as well in congratulating the projects who were selected. And it was really exciting to see the videos. And but I would also like to wish success for those who perhaps were not successful this time, to still be able to realize their projects in the future. I've recently taken over my new function. I have lived quite a number of years, lived and worked in the region, in the Western Balkans. I'm very connected to it, and so it's really a particular pleasure for me to have been invited for this event. And in particular, since the focus is cultural cooperation with the Western Balkans. I would like to perhaps make 3 points in my intervention. First, I would like to say a few words why we are actually supporting culture with the Western Balkans. I would like to talk a little bit about the different strands of our support, more to give an additional flavor of the breadth of the initiatives that we are supporting. And also I would like to conclude with a few words about the economic recovery in the post-COVID context. So to start, there are indeed many good reasons, and many of them have been mentioned already, why support of culture in the cooperation with the Western Balkans is important. And the first one really relates to values. Culture really exemplifies many of the values that we hold dear in Europe. It's about diversity, it's about innovation, it's about creativity, it's about freedom of expression as well. And culture also has this bridge building function. So culture really connects people, it connects communities. It manages to connect the past to the future. Culture helps, I believe, us to learn about each other. It helps really also to embrace good neighborly relations. And even within societies, it helps to build up and strengthen tolerance. But culture is also, and that's quite important, it's also an economic factor. And what is perhaps not known enough, but in the EU actually, the cultural and creative sectors, they represent 5% of the GDP. So culture is actually the third largest employers, right after the construction and the hospitality sectors. So you see there are indeed many good reasons for support to cultural cooperation with the Western Balkans. And we have seen quite a diversity already in the projects that were presented. I want to add a few facets to this. We, at regional level, we have recently designed a program to promote intercultural dialogue and to strengthen the social and economic impact of the creative sector in the region. So that's a program that will start rather soon. And it's a program that focuses both on cultural cooperation within the Western Balkans, as well as with the European Union. One of the angles that is supported here is also cultural heritage, because that is actually an important factor also for local development. Then we have supported a set of projects really from the angle of reconciliation and inclusion. And I would like to give two examples for that as well. One project is entitled, How Do I See You? And here the focus is really on artists. So it's a project that was designed by young artists from Serbia and Kosovo, who among others are creating video stories on this very title. Another project comes from the border region in North Macedonia and Albania. And here artists have tried to integrate vulnerable groups in local communities. And here the nice title I find is Use of Art When It Is Hard to Talk. But culture is an important driver for tourism and also for job creation that comes with it. And here I would like to mention one flagship project that we have supported really quite for a number of years, and that is the Via Dinarica. Via Dinarica is a network, so to speak, of long distance hiking trails connecting the Western Balkans. And we believe that this project has not only increased the regional tourist offer, but it has also, in a way, promoted the recognition of Western Balkans as a tourist destination. And we have a similar project with a similar, in a way, intention, the so-called Triple P project. And this focuses on the promotion of cultural and adventure tourism. And again, the ambition is to promote the Western Balkans as a tourist destination at a global level. The final set of examples that I would like to mention concerns cultural heritage. We have supported quite a number of projects in that regard, and I was so lucky to be able to participate in a few of them when I was working in the Western Balkans, and I must say they have been among the most exciting projects that I have been involved in. And that's the Golubac fortress.
I'm afraid we are having some problems also for Holger. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost the connection for the moment. I see a black screen. Again, luckily, I believe Holger managed to say a lot of essential things. I hope that we will manage to have him back also for the Q&A so that he will be able to explain a little bit more and expand what are the messages from the engineer. But so far it was already very clear and okay, very maybe we can Yeah. Are we there? Yes. Maybe before we move to Barbara, who is still there, and I can see she is there. Maybe there should be a very short video on Creative Europe program and the Western Balkans. Just a very short one. Thank you. Thanks. It's coming.
The European Union and the Western Balkans work together to offer better opportunities for young people through several funding programs like Creative Europe. This EU program supports the cultural and audiovisual sectors and is open to the Western Balkans. Creative Europe helps artists and creative industries to operate and exchange across Europe, seize opportunities of the digital age, and tap into new audiences. From a young fashion collective to a music innovation hub, Creative Europe has already funded many cultural projects in the Western Balkans. Are you ready to unleash your creative potential? Find out more.
Well, that was a real teaser. So, Barbara, now you must have something interesting to say. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Walter. After all these little disruptions, but they always came at a good time, I think, because I think our speakers managed to say most of what they wanted to deliver as messages. So now from my side, I would also like to wish you good morning and thank you for having joined us today in this very special and very lively event about cultural cooperation between the EU and the Western Balkans. First of all, also from my side, of course, thanks to all the colleagues and the speakers for their preparations and contributions. And of course, we were particularly grateful, as has been said before, that Commissioners Varhelyi and Gabriel were able to join us. And I think it came across and their presence really, therefore, was a tangible proof of the importance that your region and cultural cooperation has for them, for us, for the EU at large. And it showed very clearly how there is a need to develop and promote new narratives about the region. We have even seen a project tackling this particular issue, and we believe firmly that cultural operators can contribute to this. I would also like to reiterate from my side the congratulations to the 13 selected projects from nearly 350 applications. It would have been, of course, a joy to support more of these inspiring projects. It was equally a very pleasurable experience to see the videos and hear and witness the enthusiasm of the activities that are already taking place on such topical issues. And it was said before, but I would like to say it again, while the creativity is really astounding, there is much more to them. They are inclusive, participatory, interdisciplinary, collaborative, outreaching, and often in a digital or sustainable approach. And this is really what makes them very much in line with what we are looking for in the Creative Europe program, but it's also very much in line, of course, with what Commissioner Gabriel said, the European agenda for the Western Balkans and its objectives. So congratulations again. We also heard it before, the context in which we are having this event is special and critical for many in the cultural and creative sectors that have been so much challenged during these crises and the devastating effects that it has. And we believe that the recovery may be a long and difficult road. So it's safe to say that all the countries and cultural operators are facing great difficulties, but we also believe that organizations and artists from the sector can very much learn from each other on how to best handle the impact of the crisis. And it's our firm conviction that through collaboration and partnership, we can really help each other. And in this context, of course, the timing of these projects is serendipitous. This is all, of course, the intention of the new Creative Europe program, which as was said before, we will be launching the calls in the next weeks, as Walter has said. We have also heard Commissioner Gabriel and Walter say it before. The European Parliament is about to vote on Creative Europe today, and that will then be really the last step that displays the commitment of the EU to culture. Our program has a significantly increased budget, and therefore, with more funding, of course, comes also more opportunities for collaboration, and hopefully also, therefore, an increased number of funded projects. I would now like to go a little bit more into detail of what the Commissioner has started sketching out from my area of competency. Why is Creative Europe so special? It's special because for the first time in a very clear manner, the EU's priorities for the culture sectors will serve as a guiding light for the actions funded and under Creative Europe. And while the so-called new European agenda for culture stresses the different roles that culture can play, we will of course continue culture in its intrinsic value for what it is. So what are the objectives that are laid down in the new European agenda for culture, this cultural policy basis for our funding? First of all, it's about providing an ecosystem that supports artists and culture and creative professionals and European content. We know that the sectors are characterized by self-employment, and artists often face economic difficulties and need to take on several and very different jobs. And Europe must support those artists for their own sake and support a building of their economic context. And this is all the more relevant bearing in mind their economic relevance. We heard about it before. And we also know that the arts bring about innovation through creativity, and that of course contributes to Europe's competitiveness overall. The mobility of artists and cultural and creative professionals, and the circulation and translation of European content and works are also essential in this respect. Culture also fosters cohesion and well-being. It promotes individual empowerment. It promotes democratic consciousness and social cohesion. We heard about that quite a lot already this morning, through exchanges with other people and civic engagement, taking therefore into account interests and needs of specific groups, such as young people and minorities. It also promotes gender equality. Now, we know that gender gaps are a reality for all the sectors, but also very much still in the culture and creative sectors. Women have less access to jobs and resources. They are paid less and tend to be still underrepresented in decision-making positions, also in the culture and creative sector. And this, we believe, needs to change in this 21st century, quite obviously. And culture also facilitates international relations, international cultural relations. This is what the whole event today is also about. It's at the heart of all of our actions, and funding in Creative Europe also serves the purpose to stimulate cooperation among several countries within the EU, but also beyond, and last but not least, of course, with our neighbors and you here in particular. Let me say also that, of course, very importantly for your region, culture also is a very important element when it comes to sustaining cultural heritage. It is vital to ensure the legacy of our common heritage for future generations. And we have a couple of actions, for example, the European Heritage Label, the European Heritage Days, and the European Capitals of Culture that display this intention to make sure that sustainability reigns also in terms of our safeguarding of cultural heritage. I would now very briefly well, maybe not so briefly, because it may be of interest to many of you, go a little bit into detail about what the teaser teased on, which is the Creative Europe also from 2021 to 2027. Commissioner has said it evolves and builds on the previous program. The main two objectives of the program remain unchanged. They were mentioned before. These are the initiatives that we can take at the European level to safeguard European cultural and linguistic diversity and cultural heritage, but also strengthen the competitiveness of our cultural and creative sectors. So many of the past actions of the 2014-2020 program under which you were funded will continue to be implemented. I'm talking, of course, about cooperation projects, the European networks and the platforms, and we will be supporting cultural organizations in general. Our special actions that I just mentioned will continue, of course, and also our different prizes that we have in the area of music, architecture, literature, and heritage, very importantly. So an increased budget, we know, will help us implement more actions, but we also have some new elements in the new Creative Europe program. The culture strand has been strengthened, in particular, Commissioner mentioned it, by simplifying the access to the cooperation projects through higher co-funding. I know that some of you have asked this question in the written questions. How do we aim doing this? We aim raising accessibility by making it easier to raise matching funds to our funding. We have seen also in your call very much that it's a necessity, in particular in some countries where there's a challenge to find matching funds, and this may prove prohibitive sometimes when it comes to accessing funding. We will also increase the budget for platforms for emerging artists. We will also make our pilot project on individual mobility for artists a horizontal tool under Creative Europe. And this mobility tool is also already very successful, as we know, in your region. And we will further introduce what we call a sectorial approach that will complement horizontal actions such as the cooperation projects for specific sectors. And we will also be able, through the increased budget that we have, and this is very relevant, I think, to say also in the presence of our colleague from DG NEAR, and in your presence, that we will be able to develop a clear international dimension for this program. Now, the cross-sectorial strand, that is the sector, that's the strand that marries the audiovisual and the culture strand, incorporates also several changes to reflect new objectives. It now continues to comprise support for policy cooperation and outreach, but it's also very importantly launching a clear new initiative which is called Creative Innovation Labs, and that is to support cross-sectorial innovation thinking. If you think about augmented reality or virtual reality or artificial intelligence, they will be for the first time really tackled under the cross-sectorial strand, and I'm very much looking forward to the projects that we will be able to support under this particular initiative. But we are also introducing under the cross-sectorial strand a highly politically relevant action, which consists in supporting cross-cutting activities to support the news media sector, to fight fake news and to support independent journalism and to support journalism partnerships. And we have seen, I think, during this crisis of the last year and a half, how important such actions will prove. We will, of course, continue to support Creative Europe desks as well. And I hope some of you are listening in as well and have heard this message before. The third strand and the biggest strand of Creative Europe is the media strand that is now going to place an emphasis on innovative storytelling. It will further exploit the potential of high quality drama series, animation, also in virtual reality. It will provide more training opportunities for professionals to adapt to the transformations the sector is facing, and it will use even more the power of cooperation and networking, in particular to boost theatrical and online distribution. And as we said, we will be soon launching the calls. Many of you are probably waiting out there for this launch to happen. Let me say that we will put a lot of the budget that we have received from the budgetary authority, from the European Parliament and from the member states in the calls of the next years in order to be able to help the recovery happen fairly quickly. And let me just say, for the culture sector alone, this will mean more than 800 million euros over the next 7 years. So overall, the budget increase is enormous. We're talking about almost a doubling compared to the previous generation. Now, of course, there's question about how third countries that are not currently in the EU will be able to participate in this program. We have already a lot of interest from third countries to join Creative Europe, including, of course, you from the Western Balkans. And Commissioner has said it, we are already doing our best to complete the process that needs to be put in place for a new agreement for Creative Europe. So all of this can happen, and all of you from the region should be able to participate already in the first calls that we will be launching very soon. The participation of non-EU countries furthers our objectives for a more international outreach of the program and our cultural cooperation that also Holger has talked about. We are really working hard to make this a reality and allow the continued participation of the Western Balkans in the Creative Europe program, and in particular also on the desks whose support, I guess, is very much appreciated in helping prepare applications. So in a nutshell, this is an overview that I wanted to give you of how policy is backed with funding and the cooperation opportunities that we would like to give under the Creative Europe program. And I really hope that you are all around there already interested and reflecting upon taking part in future projects and building on the experience that you that are now engaged in projects will be making at the moment. And I already wish you now a lot of success in your cultural endeavors. We are now open for questions, and as we said before, we're also ready, of course, to take on questions that you would have maybe liked to ask Commissioner Gabriel, who unfortunately had to leave because she had an unforeseen engagement.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barbara. A very comprehensive presentation about what we are doing for culture in the Western Balkans and for the new Creative Europe program, of course. I see that Holger is back with us. Thank you, Holger, for joining us again. I believe probably you managed to say all again the most essential things during your first intervention. Maybe we can move to the Q&A, and maybe I'll take the opportunity, Holger, since you're there. I will ask you the first question, which is, I know that you covered some of this ground before, and also the Commissioner mentioned it, but probably our stakeholders would like to hear it again. How is the EU going to support sustainable cultural relations in the region?
Thanks, Walter, and apologies really for these technical hiccups. So Commissioner Gabriel is not on her own, but indeed I was largely through the presentation. So then indeed we can cover other aspects now through the questions. So sustainable cultural relations. Well, I think the first thing, all the presentations today, they really give testimony to how important we feel this is to put cultural relations on a sustainable basis. And what I think is important in that regard is really that there is a long-term and stable framework in place, both a policy framework as well as a programmatic framework, that there are resources to implement actions that come in this framework. And then perhaps most importantly, and we've seen a lot of that today, that all of that needs to build in a way on the initiative, on the commitment of individuals, different actors in society. So I think what I would like to emphasize again is what Commissioner Gabriel presented, because I think it's a very important initiative. This Western Balkans agenda on innovation, she mentioned the long title, and culture is given really a very important space as part of this agenda. And I think this agenda can really provide a sort of a long-term policy framework for cooperation between the EU and the Western Balkans. And I think the agenda will really outline sort of the different facets and the potential for cultural cooperation and how to further reinforce it. And Commissioner Vaheli has already mentioned the overall role that the economic and investment plan will play in this culture. This innovation agenda, focusing also on culture, really complements this initiative very well. But we have heard also about the importance of Creative Europe, because this is the stable, long-term programmatic framework that is really key. And Barbara has mentioned it, Commissioner Gabriel has mentioned it. It comes with an increased financial envelope. This is very, very positive. Because it's a stable envelope, and it's an envelope that will be there for 7 years, and it will really provide the opportunity to further strengthen the cooperation and really come up with concrete initiatives. What I think from a political point of view is very important as well. This is an EU program. Indeed, it's a program of the EU member states, and the Western Balkans will participate on the same terms and conditions as the EU member states. So in a way, this is EU integration, what we want to achieve for the Western Balkans already in action and achieved in the cultural sector. And this is also why for us in DGNIR, this is very important. And this is why we support also financially the participation of the Western Balkans in this important program. I think we are also aware that there is perhaps still some way to go to fully benefit from the opportunities that are provided under this program. But here also there are capacity building efforts on the way to really help actors in the Western Balkans to be successful when trying to take advantage of the opportunities that are provided under the program. So I really think these policy framework and this programmatic framework, they really provide the space for such sustainable cultural relations. But then really it needs to be filled with life by all the actors, really the broad range from civil society, economic operators, government institution. And ultimately, it's a lot about people-to-people contacts that really sustainable cultural relations need to be based on. Back to you, Walter.
Thank you very much. I will just add that this is really a cooperation agenda for everybody, for the member states, for the Commission, for the Western Balkans, for the independents, for the artists, for the organizations. And it's really important to emphasize that we have a political context, a clear political context, a strong policy framework, and also some important funding programs, some means that we can use to implement our political objectives. And If I look at Barbara, because Barbara, you make a very good presentation about the Future Creative Europe program, but maybe there's a difficult question which actually comes from our stakeholders, because you mentioned mobility. How important is mobility, and we will continue to support mobility. How do you see the future really of touring and mobility during these days and after, hopefully, this crisis?
Well, obviously, we have seen that mobility can be hampered from one day to another. And we are very much aware that artists and creation and cultural working, the creation of cultural works depends very much on inspiration, on collaboration, on working with each other, and very often across borders. So if mobility and crossing borders, which is always the basis of everything we fund, it's also one of the bases for European integration, is hampered, there's an issue. But I think during this crisis, we have seen that a lot can also be done in a virtual environment, like we are having this conference in a digital mode. So meetings can take place, first getting to know each other can take place in such an environment. A lot can be done, getting to know each other. And I think we will be introducing these kind of virtual and technologically innovative elements into the new program by also making sure that the positive ecological spillover that this has, no doubt, if you travel less, you have less of an CO2 emission and have less of an ecological footprint, that this will be turned into a positive element also when it comes to artistic creation. If you look at the performing arts and other arts forms, I know, they are already looking at how this digital environment actually provides for new artistic forms of creation. So we will ask all projects to consider what their environmental impact is, and how do they actually want to contribute to making sure that the European Green Deal, which is a cross-cutting priority for the EU, is actually achieved, because we need to contribute to making this European Green Deal a reality. So we will be asking projects, how do you intend to lower your ecological footprint, but making very sure, and I really insist on this, that that we are aware and that we keep the focus of Creative Europe on supporting artists and the cultural sector. And that we are not creating new exclusion, because of course we remain very much aware, as I said, that creation depends on meeting each other, and certain art forms will always only thrive through meeting audiences live, being together on stage, sitting together in a cinema, being in a museum physically cannot be replaced. So what we will try to do is that we will ask our projects, in particular under the culture program, as you know, Walter, because the agency will be implementing most of Creative Europe calls, as you have done in the past, we will be asking projects to say, how do you cater for this ecological concern, which is a future generations concern? But then we will also, of course, look at the artistic content and the quality of the project. And then we will see how digital tools and digital instruments can actually make events more inclusive, enlarge an audience, have less of a burden of accessibility. If I'm in my pajamas attending a theater play on my sofa, nobody will be bothered. So maybe I will even go to the opera if I don't have to get dressed, you know, in black tie. Maybe that will reduce these burdens to certain art forms as well. And I think this is a very good thing.
Indeed. I mean, one of the objectives of the Creative Europe program that we are about to launch now is to support the cultural and creative sectors in the ecological and digital transition, which it became even more important, of course, during these days of the crisis. Actually, what was it, about 10 days ago, no? We had a large event, unusually large, really unexpected, because there were like 400 participants of our beneficiaries, exchanges, practices, challenges, but also good practices during these difficult times. No? How you can really evolve. Some projects can evolve during these days. Still, it remains a crisis. So I think I also would like to ask Holger, what is the EU response to this crisis for the Western Balkans in particular?
I think the Commissioner Vaheli has said quite a few words already on our overall response, and maybe I can deepen that a little bit, because indeed, last year when the pandemic hit, we reacted quickly in putting together a comprehensive response package for the Western Balkans, and that had two main angles. So the first angle was really to address the immediate health humanitarian needs, and the second aspect, the needs related to the economic recovery. So when it comes to the health aspects, that was quite straightforward in the sense of providing medical equipment. The Commissioner has mentioned now also the vaccines that go in particular in the direction of medical staff. With regard to vulnerable people, we have reinforced really quite significantly our support to international organizations that provide really such support on the ground for vulnerable staff. But of course, in financial terms, the most important aspect is the economic recovery. And here, I think the biggest danger in Europe, and of course in the Western Balkans, was that in particular small, medium-sized enterprises would go bankrupt, that there would be a loss of jobs. So what we try to focus on, and we did that in cooperation really with international and with local banks, to in a way provide liquidity for, in particular for small and medium-sized enterprises, that they get through this difficult period. And that, of course, is something that is also an offer for operators in the cultural sector, for cultural industries, because they are usually fall into this category of micro, small, or medium-sized enterprises. And but the economic and investment plan that Commissioner Vaheli has mentioned really. I would say we all know that while the pandemic is still with us and the economic recovery is an enormous challenge ahead of us for all of Europe and for Western Balkans. So the economic and investment plan is really the response for that. It comes with this really sizable financial envelope of 9 billion euros over seven years. And it has quite a few components, so support for public infrastructure investments, but also a lot of support for the private sector. And here it links up very well with the discussion that we had on innovation aspects, support again to small and medium-sized enterprises. Again, really helping them to have access to liquidity, but not only that, it's also a lot of support programs and capacity building. And this can be very concrete for operators in the cultural sector as well, because it can, for example, help them to link up to European professional networks or foster, for example, co-productions with partners in Europe. So this is the medium and long-term agenda, and if implemented successfully, it will make a contribution. Also to, and Commissioner Gabriel referred to that in her remarks, the competitiveness of the cultural sector, which in employment terms is also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the key message is that we are really in it together, because the crisis was, it came up suddenly. It was a sudden event, but then we need a long-term recovery. So it's really important that there is an envelope, a global package about this. And but if I look at Barbara, because also Holger mentioned that during this crisis, we saw how important culture is, but also how vulnerable the cultural operators, the artists and the small organizations are. The crisis really revealed how vulnerable they are. What are the plans from the side of the EU to help them, to continue to support them?
Well, obviously, funding is a part of it. That's very clear. Commissioner mentioned various programs that we have to support the cultural and creative sectors, even beyond her portfolio. And before you ask, or even if you have asked, even if we are outside our individual mobility tool, not helping individual artists, the Creative Europe program supports organizations that make and bring artists into work and culture and creative professionals into work. So we are, of course, via Creative Europe also supporting the artists. And we also know, for example, that via our means to raise our co-funding rate, for example, we're really making it easier to access funding and also still to trigger funding from other sources, hopefully maybe from private or public sources. So this is, of course, even if we are in a context of what we call subsidiarity, even if we are not the best suited at the European level to give immediate relief to help individual artists get out of the crisis, we believe that through the funding of cooperation and cross-border creation and mobility, we stimulate working careers, we raise capacity, we help professionalization, we help training measures. Other programs do that even more, for example, Erasmus. And that, of course, in fine has a positive impact also on the situation of people working in the arts. But Walter, you know it because it was your previous job, if I can give that away here. We have the work plan for culture that is running for the years 2019 to 2022, where one of the objectives also is to look very closely at the status of the artist, and in particular also his and her economic and social status. And for that purpose, the European Commission has not only launched a study that is looking very carefully into very different aspects that define this working and living environment for artists, but is of course also ready to take conclusions from this. There's also the legal framework that we are looking at. For example, if you look at all the copyright issues that have a direct impact on artists, for example, when it comes to fair remuneration via intellectual property rights and similar. And we have as some of you may know, established an OMC group, which is called an Open Method of Coordination group, consisting of experts from member states that are looking at this. And this is what we can do at the European level. That this is what we best do at the European level, is to encourage the exchange of information and to trigger and help people learn from each other, and maybe also take on experiences and initiatives that are developed in other countries to help artists and the creative sectors in their own countries. So I'm inviting you, Walter, to complement, but I think there's a whole, next to funding, there's a whole range of initiatives from the legal point of view, from the dialogue point of view, the platforms dialogue that we have, and of course the funding, that all of them shape together a hopefully positive environment for artists and cultural and creative professionals to thrive in.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, as as Barbara said, it's an whole environment that we need to try to influence. From legislation, copyright, we see how important is copyright in the online world now, because full events take place online. We definitely need, we are putting a little bit pressure, if you can, to the member states if they can implement the directive, the new directive on copyright, for instance, and also the conditions of the working conditions of artists and other cultural operators. It's not directly a competence for the Commission. I mean, we cannot obviously issue law in this sense, but we can support and disseminate the good examples that there are in many member states. Some member states there are, in others there are fewer good examples. So we should circulate the examples, and we are trying to stimulate them really to improve their the overall conditions of artists. Maybe before I go the floor to Alessandra, maybe I will also answer a couple of questions directly that were originally for the Commissioner. Question is, what are the challenges that we find in the implementation of the program in the Western Balkans of Creative Europe? Well, we have seen that there's a huge variety of ideas. There's inventiveness, there's a social innovation, there's also technological innovation, actually. They're really technologically savvy. What are the weaknesses, let's see, because we do not have as many projects as we would like to have from all the countries, all the Western Balkans as such. I would say that it is about the small organizations, and also Holger made the point here, because small organizations are a strength because you can really reach out to the communities at local level, which is really a good thing, and it's really important. On the other hand, it's also a weakness, inevitably, because you cannot find the matching funds, you cannot really find the partners, it's very difficult to grow. This is also why, by the way, we came up with the idea all together, all three, here, for having this call, which is really with a higher co-funding rate and a dedicated envelope. Now, in the new Creative Europe program, as Barbara Gessler has mentioned, we have also listened to some questions of the stakeholders. So there will be more support, a higher co-funding rate for small organizations. There will be intermediate possibilities if you in order to avoid too big a gap between a small scale project and a large scale project. We are now coming up, and we are already discussing with the member states, and they approved it, intermediate categories. So we are really trying to listen to the needs of the stakeholders and to support them a little bit more, because we do believe that small organizations are an advantage, and we are trying to do what we can with them. Another question was, is it possible to create a communication network between of course, what we are doing now is exactly trying to establish a network between the different projects. It's not so much to talk about us or to us, it's really to talk between themselves. These projects should learn a little bit what the others are doing. So we encourage them, absolutely, to create, to communicate, to exchange good practices. You know how to do it. I mean, the social networks are there for this reason as well. But we are also, let me say, we will not leave you in peace during the 3 or 4 years of your projects. We will come back to you. And also thanks to the platform that we are organizing today, our event, we will keep in touch with them, and we will continue to establish these links that are really what we want to do, all of us, all together. So I will just thank you very much for Barbara and Holger for their participation. It was extremely lively, very nice. Maybe Alessandra is there, and she wants to say a few words at the end.
Thank you very much, Valde. Thank you very much, Barbara and Holger, for your interesting, indeed, messages. I think that now we come to the end. We have learned a lot about, I mean, also the future opportunities that we have, the range of initiatives that are available for the culture sector, and in this specifically for the member states and for the Western Balkans. We had the chance to indeed to have an overview of all the projects that we have been funded through this specific call. And now, I mean, the only thing that I have to do now, I mean, as I said, we come to an end, is to thank you all for attending this event that I would define really enriching and inspiring. Despite the fact that, of course, it was online, and despite all the issues that we had with the connection, but was really, really inspiring and interesting. And we do hope that you will indeed you share these feelings. I would also like to thank all our speakers, the Cultural Relations Platform that has been coordinating and implementing the event, and of course the coordinators of the 13 funded projects, so who not only have been with us today, but also for the inspiring materials and excellent material that they have provided us and that we have been using in order to organize this event. Let me also thank the graphic design and communication company, Signa Laser, who produced the final materials and provided such a nice platform for us to present and exchange these, again, amazing and excellent projects. I would also like to thank all the services involved in somehow in the organization of this event. The Director General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, the Director General for Neighborhood and Enlargement Negotiations, the Commission Service for Foreign Policy Instruments, the European External Action Services, and last but not least, the Culture Unit from the Education and Culture Executive Agency. So all my colleagues in this unit, and a special thanks to Walter for the excellent moderation of the event. And of course, again, thanks to you all present today and contributing to the success of this event. Thank you very much again, and enjoy the afternoon. Almost the afternoon.